Color as function, not symbol. Color is usually treated as symbolism: red for passion, blue for calm, green for healing. That is not how it is used here. Color in these systems is not representational, it is functional. Certain wavelengths fatigue specific interpretive layers of the brain. Others stimulate without engaging meaning. When color is used continuously, the mind stops reading it as information and starts processing it as environment. At that point, color becomes atmosphere rather than message. Atmosphere bypasses resistance. Flashing colors and perception reset. Flashing color is not meant to excite. It is meant to reset. When color changes slowly, the mind predicts it. When it changes irregularly, prediction collapses. The conscious mind relies on prediction to maintain control. Interrupt prediction often enough, and the mind releases the frame entirely. At that point, whatever else is present is no longer evaluated. It is absorbed. Why some screens appear empty. A blank screen is not empty. It is unclaimed territory. When visual input drops below a certain threshold, the brain stops consuming and starts generating. This is why people see movement, texture, or depth in apparent nothingness. The absence of imagery invites internal projection. That projection is not guided, it is permissive, and permissive space is where subliminal material settles most deeply. The Ganzfeld effect without mysticism. The Ganzfeld effect is not mystical. It is neurological inevitability. Uniform sensory fields dissolve edges. When edges dissolve, separation collapses. The mind loses the boundary between observer and environment. In that state, suggestion no longer feels external. It feels like self-originated thought. This is not manipulation. It is alignment with how perception already works. Why long run times matter. Short exposure stimulates. Long exposure conditions. The first phase is resistance. The second phase is boredom. The third phase is surrender. After that, the system runs without interference. An hour or more is not excessive. It is the point at which effort stops mattering. Duration replaces intensity. Color drift and time dissolution. Slow color drift disrupts time perception. When changes occur without clear rhythm, the mind cannot mark progress. Minutes lose definition. Attention spreads. In that state, subliminal layers are no longer tracked as separate events. They are perceived as continuity. Continuity is what allows imprinting without memory. Why neutral colors are often stronger. Bright colors attract attention. Neutral colors dissolve it. Grays, soft whites, muted tones, and low contrast fields do not stimulate analysis. They remove landmarks. Without landmarks, the mind stops navigating. When navigation stops, reception begins. Flashing without stimulation. Flashing here is not strobe. It is not designed to shock. It exists just below the threshold of conscious tracking, enough to prevent fixation, not enough to demand attention. This keeps awareness loose without stress. Loose awareness is the optimal state for subliminal systems. Blankness as radionic plate. In radionics, a plate does not instruct, it witnesses. A blank or uniform visual field functions the same way. It holds space without interference. Subliminal material passes through without being refracted by imagery. The screen becomes a carrier, not a message. Why nothing is labeled. Labeling collapses function into meaning. Meaning activates judgment. Judgment disrupts flow. By leaving fields unlabeled, the system remains open-ended. What enters does not encounter argument. It encounters silence. Color as weather, not signal. The correct way to think about these visuals is not as symbols. They are weather. They move through awareness without asking permission. They do not point, they surround. And what surrounds eventually shapes. Why this feels uneventful. Nothing dramatic happens because drama activates monitoring. Monitoring keeps the conscious mind awake. This system does not seek reaction, it seeks acclimation. When something feels uneventful, it is often because it is operating at the correct depth. The role of fatigue. Visual monotony gently fatigues interpretation. This is not exhaustion, it is saturation. Once saturated, the mind stops filtering. Filtering is effort. Effort drops first. What remains is receptivity. Why this works in the background. Focused attention is optional. Peripheral exposure is often stronger. When attention drifts, the subconscious remains present. That is why these systems work while sleeping, working, or resting. They do not require participation. They require presence. Closing statement on visual technique. These visuals are not meant to be watched. They are meant to be inhabited. Once inhabited, they stop being noticed. And when something is no longer noticed, it starts working.